So with Game&watch Gallery 2, Nintendo's naming schemes don't get any better. This is technically the third game in the series because, as I explained in my first video, this was the second. Game & Watch Gallery existed, but like the states didn't get that, so I'm kind of counting it out. So while this is 1 and 2, this is also 2 and 3, and so on and so forth. And this is the fourth game and the final game, but also the fifth game. It's stupid. Nintendo needs to get better with their naming schemes. Like, I get it's convenient to just start with 1 and pretend like, you know, the states never got the first one, but I don't know. Nintendo really likes to pretend like games don't exist. So anyways, Mother 3. Hello my watchers of games! We are back with the follow-up to one of my first reviews on this channel, Game & Watch Gallery 2. This one has a bit more history with me, as I had this on the 3DS Virtual Console for a while and really had a blast. Going into this, I knew I would have a bit more fun with this one, but here I am today covering why that is and bringing more light to this lovely franchise of Game & Watch. Hope your eyeballs are ready, cause we've moved from the Game Boy to the Game Boy Color for this one. If you aren't prepared to comprehend such amazing views, click off now. I cannot blame you. Well, I don't want to keep faffing around, so I'd say we get into this. This is going to be Game & Watch Gallery 2, released for the Game Boy Color in 1997. Let's dive in. Skipping the general history of Game & Watch, as I assume you're either familiar with them due to the general interest, or you've totally watched my video on the first one. Right? Regardless, go check that out. I don't feel need to rehash any of that stuff, so with the large amount of games under the Game & Watch belt, making a follow-up and adding more than the first 4 games seems like a no-brainer, to be honest. Directed by Hitoshi Yamagami with Shigeru Miyamoto as producer. Also, Nintendo's R&D 1 department helped with production, along with company Tosei. A very decorated company, but does not take credit for a majority of the games they have helped on. The rap list is quite large too. The Gallery games for start, the Starfy series, some entries in the Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Famicom Detective Club, and even some earlier Dragon Ball games. Anyways, Japan saw the only non-color release in 97, and then the rest of the world got Gallery 2 in 1998 for the Game Boy Color. This game saw a return of what we saw in 1, but with some general upgrades as well. Naturally, the reception was positive all around, people liking the modern Mario & Company twist for extra gameplay variety. And that's really all we see until 2012 with the 3DS Virtual Console release, where I eventually had my chance to play it. Being like $4 or $5 at the time, I think I got my money's worth, giving me a lot more fun during that time. So will that translate now that I have to deal with taxes and a credit score? I mean, I probably still will have fun, need distractions from the dullness that is reality sometimes. So let's get in. So like last time, I will talk about each game individually, talking about its multiple variations. One thing that we see from here on out is the more streamlined gallery system. Like 1, the games give you 5 stars per difficulty in Modern or Classic, so netting a nice 20 stars per game. With the 6 games featured here, and using my excellent math skills, a whopping 120 stars are able to collect. The system giving you preset rewards at every 5 stars gained. 5 stars gives you a sound room, and getting to the end nets you the cast credits. The Gallery games return, giving a virtual museum, so to speak, of a few selected games, which help document the history, if pretty basic. Lastly, first for the series, we actually see unlockable games through the star system. Now, side tangent, I love unlockable content and honestly miss this type of thing in gaming. Some people may shrug at the idea of holding back content inside of a game, but it was a motivator to keep playing and unlock more of a game. Something that the games like the Gallery games did, or even things like Super Smash Bros., other fighting games, or party games like racing games I can think of. I'd rather play the game a bit to unlock cool secrets to share with friends than just shell out shitty microtransactions and extra unnecessary DLC in the modern age of gaming. Maybe a bit old school mentality, but I digress. I will get into the unlockable games last so we can finally move into each game giving the spotlight. So let's get into that. From the get-go, we see 5 games we get to play: Parachute, Helmet, Vermin, Chef, and Donkey Kong. Let's start from the top with Parachute. A very simple concept of a game. Similar to Fire, you must catch a bunch of people jumping to their deaths. Instead of urban hell, we are treated with dumbass skydivers over some shark-infested water. You move the boat to one of 3 spots to catch the divers. Similar to fire, each column has its own falling speed. Dissimilar to fire though, it's simply catching each person instead of bouncing them to the ambulance that we saw. Version B picks up the pace as you'd expect, with the rightmost aisle having a tendency to catch falling victims in the nearby palm tree. This is a double-edged sword through and through. This tree can be a godsend, holding an aisle down while the diver sways back and forth for a bit. The RNG can screw you over, however. When they release, you gotta be ready to catch that shark food before they touch the water. Deceptively trickier than the concept alone shows. Maybe the exact moment the game considers you catching the diver is what throws me off, similar to Manhole in the original gallery. Either that or I just simply suck and I'm trying to find excuses. Let's go with the latter. Not my favorite from the pack if I'm being honest, but it serves a nice place and is a very easy and understand version to just pick up and play. Now looking to the modern side, we see more fire similarities as we now are Mario catching Toads, Yoshis, and Donkey Kong Jr.'s. Each character has their own respective fall speed, with the opening of the parachute being right away for Toad, but last second for Kong Jr. This makes timing a bit more trickier, but I would say it's engaging. Replacing the tree sits a cannon nearby that can pick up stray divers and shoot them back into the fray. Similar in concept to the tree, but I appreciate the twist as it can go into different aisles than just the rightmost. Version B for modern just simply ups the ante a bit. In most modern versions as well, any potential misses we will see clears at 200 points and then 500. In modern Mario, you gotta catch the heart to clear the misses from one of 3 mystery bubbles when the score threshold is gotten. For the most part, expect that the misses clearing is the case unless the scoring is abnormal for a Game and Watch game or I mention otherwise. So that's really all I have for Parachute, otherwise known as Shoot! Another diver becomes prey to the hungry sharks because I cannot win at this game. Next up is Helmet. OSHA hates this one simple Game & Watch game. Click here to learn more. Helmet is you taking the role of the average blue-collar worker apprentice, because you gotta make pennies. Someone's gotta learn the real man's work and gotta get some dirt in their knees, just like we used to before them damn interwebs and cell phones. At what seems to be a construction site, you navigate the workers from one end to the site and to the other side of the shed, where they escape a grisly death. Tools raining down and you have to dodge to make it across. Of course, the task isn't as simple due to the shed door sometimes deciding to say piss off and die to the poor workers. This door can only be entered when open. Obviously, you can't open it when it's closed. What I only realized when doing the research of the video is that points are accrued per every 3 tools that doesn't hit your skull. I thought it had something to do with dodge timing or something like that, but once again, I should really preface that I'm not too smart. You get a whole 5 points for every man marked safe by following tools to the other side of the yard. Overall, it's pretty fun, and you can get pretty crazy too, especially when the door is stuck closed. More so in the B side, where the tools fall faster and the door stays closed for much longer. It can really screw you over if you time it poorly, so don't. The modern variant sees Mario again dodging a paratrooper's hammer assault. A P-switch shows up and when pressed, coins appear for Mario to collect. If you collect many coins, you get an increase in the points given to Mario entering the shed. The caveat here is that Mario gets slower with each coin, giving the player a nice risk versus reward incentive. If the coins are collected over time, a superstar will appear, giving a large boost to the points. The modern version also sports multiple scenery changes over time when you hit certain score thresholds, like many of the moderns do. A very nice change to the gameplay loop with the modern versions here. I really like Helmet. Both base and modern proved to be a fun challenge. Greed is the downfall of this game, quite doubly so with the modern version punishing those who hoard all the coins without dropping them off at the shed. It's a pretty basic and kind of weird concept, albeit it's extraordinarily fun, and hey, that's what I love about it. Next up is Vermin, aka Whack-A-Mole. That's it, that's the bit. One of the first Game & Watches. Not really much to describe here. You take control of Down Smash and smack the encroaching moles. Game A has 4 spots to cover while Game B has 5. The kicker we see is the angle you hit the moles at. You swing to hit the holes on both the holes to the left and right side of the player. That's pretty easy to understand by just watching it, but I will say it adds a layer of trickiness when you're getting into the rhythm of it. Moles start popping up pretty fast and it all kind of just blurs together. Or maybe, once again, that's just me. An interesting tidbit here is that misses are not cleared at all in the classic version, really giving you a tougher time if you aren't careful early on. Being one of the first games in the Game & Watch series, specifically the third ever to be released, it's a concept that feels as old as time, or at least in a gaming sense, an arcade classic if you will. It really makes sense that there is a variant of this game idea in the Game & Watch series, and the fact that it's featured in a gallery game, well, simply no surprise. Modern version is actually one of the versions that changes the game up quite a bit. The perspective changes as we see a Yoshi dual-wielding mallets, set to protect the 6 eggs before them. The enemies come at all sides here, and Yoshi circles around the collection of eggs, keeping the tradition of modern version containing Mario enemies. We see an assortment of Paratroopas, Shy Guys, and Boos, all zooming in at different speeds. The Boos in specific can be nasty little bastards, not moving in when Yoshi is locking in on the ghosts. This can be a blessing and a curse, as you can ward off the Boos at the cost of not covering the other eggs. The eggs specifically are very unique. If the egg breaks, that is game over. Sounds rough? Well, each egg will take 3 hits before completely breaking. The enemies do wail on the eggs pretty fast once they're in egg-beating proximity, but each egg has technically its own 3 misses. One egg can take 2 hits, a second can also be down 2, etc. At the point where misses get recovered, if Yoshi hits the heart, any and all eggs will fix up their shells. Super nice to start over again. The other perk, however, though, is keeping the eggs unscathed. This will bear fruit every about 200 points, where any spotless eggs hatch to reveal contents, netting a surge of points. Obviously, all 6 spells a nice boost into your next goal of maybe getting to the next 200. I feel the way I described it makes the modern version sound piss easy. Not necessarily. The modern changes up actually a lot more, and then of course more enemies laying siege to the Yoshis as well, the different speeds mixing you up. Side B for modern is the same old, but challenging a little bit more, introducing Boos a lot earlier and obviously more frequent. Overall, the modern is a shining example of very fun gameplay loop, overshadowing the classic in my eyes. Not like it was bad, just a little plain, compared to the modern remake at least. Next on the list is Chef. Chef on the surface is a very easy game to understand the mechanics of right away. Don't let the food touch the ground. Easy. Chef is really just that. You are an overworked chef trying to toss 3 or 4 different foods in the air depending on which mode you play, all varying height and speed. The unpredictability of the food makes the game interesting and engaging. Some food flies to the top of the screen while sometimes you can only get a small toss in the air. As the game speeds up, this can get hectic very fast. To the left is a cat. Very typical to cats is the fact that they believe that the food you cook is theirs, always. I know this all too well. Here's my cat. Her name is Emily. I love her. The cat works similar to the palm tree in the parachute game. The cat will skewer the leftmost food and periodically hold it in the air. The pros and cons mirror what I said in parachute. It may save you, but the bastard cat will drop the food on its own terms, so be vigilant. Modern here does do quite a bit to change up the rules here. Honestly, it's fantastic to see included. You take the role of Peach for this game, different feel for once, and Mario and Luigi take turns tossing the food up for Peach to cook in her pan. Instead of the fixed lanes of the classic mode, the food is tossed into a random lane. Another toss-up, each food having its own properties, specifically with cooking. In Modern Chef, you actually have to focus on cooking food in addition to not letting anything drop. Food is tossed out raw, and then each food has a designated number of flips to cook the food. If the food is continued to toss, the food will become burnt after being cooked, and even more so, it will eventually disintegrate. Each flip you do still gives you a point, even past burning, so what, you ask, is the point of cooking? Yoshi. Yoshi sits behind Peach always, ready to eat the food. Yoshi eating the food does many things. If raw, you gain a point. If cooked properly, Yoshi will gain a small boost of points. Finally, burnt food will do the same as raw food with a little bit of a catch. If continuing to feed Yoshi cooked food, he will grow, laying an egg, and then a new Yoshi will hatch from the egg, and the cycle will kind of just repeat with that, giving you a big chunk of points throughout. And of course, you want to focus on this for a big return in points if that's your game. Obviously, it's going to take a lot longer otherwise. The only issue with this is that feeding Yoshi burnt food here will send Yoshi back to the previous stage he was in. Well, that doesn't give you a miss, which I will take, but the whole new set of points, there's so many more options to go about it, and I love it. Modern Chef gives so much variety in the simple concept, and is easily one of my favorite games from the Gallery series. I love the options you get here. Yoshi is a neat addition to catch any misses, but can help you boost your point total, so you want to give him cooked food instead of the burnt stuff. Obviously it'll save you from a miss, but that will set you back a little bit. Game B has both Mario Bros. Flipping food into both directions, as well as each flip having the possibility to change the lanes, as opposed to staying in a single lane once flipped. This can get pretty challenging, making Yoshi a huge help here. All in all, this one is great. No surprise this game stays as a classic in the Game & Watch series. It is fun. Well, here is the first for many of the Game & Watch Gallery games. First of the elephants, or should I say, I guess, donkeys in the room. Some Game & Watch titles here are a namesake with their original game counterparts. This is the first of many where it copies the arcade game of the same name. Another big point to mention is the look of this on the Game Boy Color. What the hell is going on? Well, the dual-screen series of Game & Watches are the precursor to DS by a few decades. I'm sure most could find the connection there without me telling you. The dual screen, if you haven't guessed, stands for 2 screens. It's kinda crazy. The Game Boy, if you haven't also seen, only has 1 screen. Kinda lame. The classic mode shows both screens squeezed into one. The bottom screen starts enlarged and works as you would expect. The top screen starts off small, but with the press of the B button, you can swap perspectives. Not only does the corresponding screen inflate, but more detail gets shown. Obviously, you want to focus on where Mario is himself usually. Gameplay is as you'd expect. Donkey Kong throws barrels down, jump and dodge. At the top sits Donkey Kong. The best arrival, you gotta activate the crane on the left side and jump to take out one of the 4 wires holding the girder. After one is gone, you can start at the bottom, rinse and repeat. After all 4, the girder falls and you get a large hit of points. Overall, pretty fun. Points are given after any barrel jump, wire cut, and Donkey falling to his death. Obviously, you could just hop the barrel staying put, but that really is no fun. There are some safe spots to plan your route to the top and take maybe a quick breather, but that minimizes after some time with the girders on the bottom screen moving, adding a new hazard. In classic, missing the crane also results in a miss as you kinda just fall to your death. The timing is honestly weird to get the hang of, but isn't too bad after fucking up a few times like I did. Not a big fan of that mechanic, but what can you do? Modern changes are what you'd expect, keeping the core the same, but as you could guess, there's some changes. The biggest change is the screen simply transitioning as opposed to having 2-screen rig that is kinda clunky at best. The barrels fall in different places as well as the places where Mario can hide. The pipes on the screen Mario can latch onto, but the issue with that is that if you sit there for too long, it causes the pipe to break, leaving it exposed for a bit. This incentivizes a more proactive game approach, which I appreciate. Instead of the crane aesthetic we saw with the classic, the scenery changes and Mario hits a switch to produce a moving platform. Jump correctly onto the platform and get to the door, and it's the same cycle again. I like the forgiveness with missing the platform here. No more miss, however unlucky timing could lead you to fall into a barrel, which is no good. All in all, it stays the same, but with the necessary changes made to enhance the experience. Not a whole lot to say here otherwise. This game is unique as it's one of the games where the biggest issue is greed and not so much memorization. It is a really addicting loop and another welcome addition to the lineup we have here. So that's it for the 5 games from the get-go. Overall, it's a very solid lineup. I appreciate the modern remixes usually doing a lot for the limited gameplay they had. It changes things without depreciating the identity of what made the classic such a standout in the first place. We are not done, however. I mentioned earlier that we see unlockable content through gaining stars. While we do not see a whole lot of crazy new things, the sound room, staff credits, museum, what I previously mentioned, we all see that and get it. We get the first in the series, as I also mentioned, the unlockable game. The original Game & Watch, Ball. Starting at 15 stars collected, once again you gain 1 star per 200 points in the majority of the games, you get Classic Ball. Ball is one of the most recognizable Game & Watches for sure, and I even kind of recently talked about it due to the feature in the Game Boy camera. Regardless, it's as simple as you get. Juggle balls. Fuck it. Let's try the real stuff. In Game A, you get 2 balls to juggle back and forth, and Game B gives you 3 to work with. It's a little slow, especially in the beginning and also in Game A. And if I'm being honest, kind of boring at times. Not bad, mind you, just prefer other games. As unlockable though, I do not mind it at all. Game B also gives you 10 points per ball juggled, making it extremely easy to get all 5 stars. It's basically a freaking handout. The only other big difference you get is you get no misses here. 1 missed ball and it's game over. Brutal. Anyways, you get 10 more stars and you see the unlocking of the modern variant. Yoshi juggles balls this time, and I suck at it. I blame the lack of depth perception or something. While very similar of a repaint for the classic game, it does enough to warrant its own version, plus there is more. At 35 stars and 45 stars respectively, there is more modern variants, featuring Mario and then Wario. Besides having their own unique visuals, the items they juggle are different, usual modern twist of things having their own weight and properties. Finally, at a whopping 100 stars, you are netted with the Bowser version of Ball. A very cool reward, but one I did not unlock. Whoops. And really, those are the games. Overall, a massive leap in quality for the first Game & Watch gallery. Not saying it was bad by any means, but the leap to me is the simple changes and more games. Since I did it in the first video, I will do a quick ranking of the games here in terms of how I enjoy them, their modern variant, and how often I may go back to them. In last place, number 6 is Ball. Not bad, just kind of boring as I said. Compared to the rest of these, really not too much to say. Number 5 is Parachute. I think I prefer Fire to this one. I can't get the timing down. Modern is pretty solid though. Number 4 is Vermin. Once again, really not that bad. Kind of okay, but doesn't stand out compared to the others. The classic is pretty mediocre, but the modern really gets it up to this point. It's very fun. Number 3 is Donkey Kong. I like the game, it's very fun. A lot of dual screen Game & Watches are really entertaining to play, and this one is not necessarily the best way to play the classic, I feel. The DS Club Nintendo games do a great job at adapting that, I will say, but I will cover those in due time. Modern is great to play though. Number 2 is Helmet, a fun and addicting game in both modern and classic modes. The gameplay loop is one of my favorites for sure. And number 1, Chef. Honestly, fantastic. The classic is great, but that modern one is one of my favorite renditions of any in the gallery series. The amount they squeezed into here was just awesome and a joy to play through. Similarly to 1, if you cap this on the eShop before Nintendo offed it, it's a nice portable game to play. The Gallery series is the perfect pick up and go type of games, and it was a great fit for the 3DS. Currently, the Switch only has Gallery 3 on their online, so hoping they all get transferred over. Secondhand markets are pretty reasonably priced, however, if you are like me and swear by physical media. With my recommendation, this is a great game to try if you're interested in the Game & Watch series. A very good starting point too if you never tried it. Underrated gem and series for the Game Boy. I would really love to see some more recognition come this way. Obviously, new games aren't really what I'm looking for, but some sort of legacy type game where they highlight some of the history of each Game & Watch games, like the Ultimate Gallery or something. A long shot maybe, but I would pay good money to see this series stay as a cool footnote in the large history of games Nintendo has seen. Regardless, I appreciate you guys checking this one out. Stay tuned for the next in the Game & Watch Gallery series, as I will continue to cover this. Thanks for watching, y'all. See ya.